Chapter 161. Tools. To make Riser understand the danger of the Chaos Brigade, Azazel explained the origin of this terrorist organization from the beginning. To be honest, while Riser didn't know all the plots, he knew some of them and had confirmed that many things were similar to what he knew from his previous life. However, Riser looked at the group of fallen angels, who prepared all the data that he would take home, and knew. He could see that it would take a while before they finished, so he still had time and didn't mind listening to Azazel's explanation. The origin of the Chaos Brigade started from the traitor from Gregory, Tannon, and the magician criminal organization, the Wizards of Oz. Then, as the two had been defeated a few years ago, out of nowhere, Ophis got her hands on this organization with the intention of defeating the Great Red. Ophis knew that she would lose against the Great Red, so she gathered followers to help her, yet due to her naivety, instead of helping her, all of those followers were using her power to reach their own purposes. Those followers are divided into several factions, with Ophis as the figurehead. The first is Old Satan faction. Old Satan. You should know the history of the devil, right? The Devil Civil War. The war between the Old Satan descendants and the current Maos and the Great King. They don't have the power to fight the four great Maos directly like you, so they join this organization. Oh, this is also the largest faction of the Chaos Brigade. Nevertheless, Azazel didn't think about this faction seriously, as he knew they were just defeated dogs. He believed that if Riser wished to, Riser would be able to erase them with ease. Then, as expected, what's the next faction? Riser didn't seem to take these factions seriously, which was something that Azazel had expected. The second is the Hero faction, and it is also the second largest faction. It is a group of humans, especially the descendants of heroes and the holders of sacred gear. While I don't have much information about this group, the leader is the holder of true Longinus, the strongest Longinus within the sacred gear. In the beginning, Rainier, Middled, and even Calawarna disdained this hero faction as they were just a group of humans, but their faces changed when they heard the leader of this group was the holder of the true Longinus. As Azazel's followers, they knew how much time, money, and power poured into researching sacred gear in their organization, and due to this, they knew how powerful sacred gear was. It was also the reason why Rainier K** led Issei and stole Asia's sacred gear. The holder of the strongest sacred gear had joined the terrorist organization. They couldn't imagine what would happen to the world after this. Still, unlike the Old Satan faction, Riser was quite interested when he heard about the Hero faction. Are you interested in this faction? Azazel asked. Why do you ask? If you get your hands on the sacred gears for the Longinus, can you let me do some research? Azazel was almost begging. After all, he knew if Riser really decided to move, this group of Hero faction might be crushed. Still, if the Hero faction could defeat Riser, then it was good. After all, who wished their organization to become the subordinate of others? Yet, somehow, Azazel just couldn't imagine how Riser was going to lose. What do you think? Nevertheless, Riser's answer was so flat. Azazel could only sigh and then explain the third faction, which was a magician faction within the Chaos Brigade, Nilrem. So there are only the three of them? Riser suddenly asked. What do you mean? Azazel asked with confusion, but his heart was beating so fast. Still, he forced himself to calm as Riser's gaze pierced deep into his body. Well, if you say so. Riser didn't force Azazel, but he knew that it was better to erase this guy so he could completely dominate the Gregory. However, Azazel secretly sighed in relief as Riser didn't press him further. Still, Riser suddenly wondered how the Chaos Brigade supported their members. It was just his guts, but he felt something terrible was going to happen somehow. Riser looked at Azazel and asked, by the way, do you know how they support their members? Azazel thought for a moment and said, well, Ophis can bestow her power into all the members, making them stronger. While Riser was surprised that Ophis could have such a power, this wasn't something that he wanted to ask. You know that we need to eat, a place to eat, and many others, right? Do you know where they can get their financial support? Azazel thought for a moment and realized that this was his missing link. Yet, he couldn't be blamed as his source of information also didn't show much interest in this matter, so he was quite clueless. However, Riser's words also opened his eyes. If they cut the financial resources of the Chaos Brigade, everyone would become wary of this organization as it would fight the other pantheons to rob the resources of others to support their activity. By then, when everyone knew how dangerous this terrorist organization was, not only the devils, fallen angels, and angels, but all the pantheons would be in peace so they could stop this disaster. So, it was due to that, Don't worry, I won't destroy them. That's great. While Azazel felt awkward, he sighed in relief. Frankly, if Azazel or Iryuka wished to move, this organization was as good as dead, but they still needed this organization, so it would become a righteous excuse for their peace. By then, as time passed, the peace, which they felt, would become a norm and common sense among the three factions. This was no doubt the wish of Azazel, Syrzek, and the others. Nevertheless, when there was a villain, there had always been a hero. So, who was the next tool? Riser suddenly asked, wondering who would become the tool that would become the representative of justice among the three factions. Don't say it like that. Your words make us feel like bad guys. We are just doing something good for the future of everyone. Even so, there was no doubt that they were going to use someone for their own agenda. Still, Azazel was worried, especially when he thought about the identity of the individual that they had chosen. Frankly, while he was worried, he knew that there was no perfect guy other than that person, especially when that guy's head was only filled with perverted thoughts. Nevertheless, Azazel knew that there was the easiest method, and he was sure that Riser also knew about this method, yet neither of them said anything about this method. Domination. This was the easiest method to gain peace. As long as Riser was strong enough and dominated the fallen angels, devils, and also the angels and became the leader of everyone, the peace that they sought would be completed. Frankly, if Syrzek was ruthless enough, or Iryuka was more diligent, then this method might be able to be implemented. No, if they were a little stronger then. Nevertheless, it was too late, especially when the fallen angels were already conquered by Riser. So, the only way to achieve peace was by using the Chaos Brigade as the symbol of terror for everyone and the other piece, which would become the symbol of peace for everyone. The holder of boosted gear, the Red Dragon Emperor. Issei Hayadu. Azazel took a deep breath and frankly told Riser the truth. This is our next tool, and he will become the symbol of peace for everyone. Chapter 162. It's too late. When the name of this person fell, all of a sudden, everything came to a standstill. No one dared to say anything as they thought Azazel was crazy. From how Riser praised Rainier, it was easy to tell that he loathed and disgusted the existence known as Issei Hayudo, yet Azazel still dared to say it. If this wasn't idiocy, what was it? Azazel was also nervous, but the choice had been made, and it was impossible to change it. Moreover, everyone also agreed that Issei Hayudo was the best tool. While it might be possible for them to defeat the Chaos Brigade by themselves, it would have a different meaning if it was either a certain famous individual among the fallen angels, or devils who would move, as it would give either faction a bigger dominance within the alliance. This alliance needs to be in the same position. Everyone was equal. Frankly, Azazel knew that they were betting, especially when Issei had lost several times. Moreover, Issei's conduct, personality, and words during the attack of Kokobile and Vala had disappointed him so much, but as Syrzek had recommended Issei, he decided to believe in Issei. Yet, there was no way for him to say that, especially when Azazel knew how horrible the relationship between Riser and Syrzek was. However, at the same time, Azazel knew there was no other suitable person than Issei. No, there were many, especially whether within the angels or fallen angels, there was a Longinus holder. Still, Issei was the main candidate as he was part of the Gremory house, the initiator of this peace alliance. This time, Azazel didn't hide anything and told Riser everything. After all, sooner or later, everything would be known by Riser. Even if they tried to hide it, Riser would quickly grasp everything. Instead of hiding it, he felt it was better to tell everything so he might get a good impression from Riser. For this decision, what do you think? Riser asked Azazel. Azazel was stunned by this question, but then he saw Riser was really asking his opinion. Nevertheless, due to this, his opinion about Riser kept changing, which made an individual known as Riser Phenex extremely complex, yet also simple. If I have to say, this decision is too hasty. We, the three factions, have our own Longinus holders. The devils, angels, and fallen angels have someone who can become the representative, so I can't say that it is good to rely on the devil's side all the time, but whether the Red Dragon Emperor or the White Dragon Emperor, there is something special about them. Azazel talked fluently, but Riser suddenly said, "So, you won't K*LL Vala?" Azazel fell in silence and could feel all the gazes on him, waiting for his answer, but could he answer this question? Cough. Cough. How about I tell you about something special about the dragon? What's so special about the dragon? They have the power to attract trouble. Riser fell in silence, then asked, "So, you use this power to attract the Chaos Brigade?" "Yes." Azazel shamelessly said so. Riser fell into silence again and suddenly realized their difficulty. Unlike him, who had a location ability that could locate anything or anyone he wished to be, There was no such a convenient ability among the three factions. Even God in the Bible didn't have such a power. If they wanted to locate the Chaos Brigade, they could only wait until this organization attacked. In other words, they lacked the initiative, but they might as well have waited until the crisis happened as they wished for peace. So a powerful enemy was needed to become a lubricant to smooth their relationship. Nevertheless, the reason why Azazel recommended Issei instead of Valley was obvious, right? However, Riser felt that this was good. He could feel many things happening in the future, but the bigger the trouble was, the bigger his chance was. Okay, I will go back now. Eh? Are you going back? You don't want me to leave? No. If you wish to leave, then I won't stop you. You don't want me to stay? Can you not tease me? Azazel was helpless. Riser only rolled his eyes. Who is going to tease a greasy uncle like you? I might as well tease the three of them instead of you. Azazel. Nevertheless, Riser's words caused them to chuckle and ease the atmosphere. By the way, I will take home the 3 Vritra sacred gears and twice critical with me. As Gregory had researched many sacred gears and even obsessed with them, they had collected many sacred gears. Not only did Riser get all the important data, but he also got 4 sacred gears, which made this trip worth it. However, Azazel was surprised. Eh? Only those things? Gregory had many collections of sacred gears, yet Riser only took a few of them, which surprised Azazel. While it might be surprising due to Riser's ruthless appearance, Azazel knew that Riser also loved to do research. Frankly, Azazel wished to do some research on Riser's spear that Riser used to K*LL Surzek previously, but he knew he had worked so long to test him, and if he pressed him even further, testing him, then even he was able to bear the consequences. You want me to take all of those sacred gears? Azazel became awkward, but when he saw Riser's smile, he knew that this guy teased him again. His lips twitched, and he thought that this guy really had a bad hobby. Still, he couldn't help but ask, Say, are you going to the meeting of the 3 factions in Kuo Town? No. There was no trace of hesitation in Riser's voice. Oh? Why? Azazel was surprised since he thought with Riser's character, Riser was going to participate even if Riser wasn't invited. Still, if that was the case, there was something that he needed to change. I'm afraid that I might K*LL all of you there. Azazel. You were joking, right? Riser didn't say anything, ignored Azazel, and was prepared to go back. He patted the buttocks of the 3 women. It's a bit hard for me to stand up like this. You are not going to stay, Riser-sama? Rainier asked sadly. Frankly, she knew with her current identity, she could only live in hiding, but she knew if Riser took a fancy to her, she would gain freedom, which was something she looked forward to, probably in the future. I have someone waiting for me. If they had slept, then whether it was Rainier, Middlet, or Calawarna, they might have been able to sigh in relief, but it seemed they were unable to do it, which made them slightly disappointed and also jealous, wondering who could make such a cold and ruthless man to show such a warm and gentle expression. This was the case with everyone, as it might be the genuine emotion Riser showed everyone as he always appeared cold and calm. Azazel thought that person was Riser's wife as he knew the reason why Riser took Vritra sacred gears was due to his wife's peerage member being the holder of Vritra sacred gear. Nevertheless, he knew that Riser wasn't a bad guy, and it was also due to this that he couldn't help but say, Riser, can you just forgive everyone? Everyone. Whether it is Surzek, Issei Haidu, Tannon, and all the others, can you just forgive them like how we, the fallen angels, have decided to embark on peace even though we hate the devils and the angels so much? I know that this is unacceptable, and even many of my races will hate me due to this decision to have peace with the races that we have been fighting. Yet, unlike us and everyone who has lost many, including our loved ones, there is still room for redemption among you. Even I can't bear to watch you keep this meaningless fight. Instead of spending your time in hatred, fighting, and crappy animosity, isn't it better to live in peace? Peace is nice, you know? You can love anyone and be with anyone you wish to be. You can even create a harem with fallen angels, and many other races from the other pantheons. So, it's too late. Riser cut Azazel's words. If Riser had a good guy system, then he might have thought about it. But what did he get villain system? Then his path was already doomed. No, if he wanted to, he could take a different path. Yet, he knew in this world, the only way for him to have a comfortable life was either to become the follower of the protagonist or the villain in front of the protagonist. Still, if he became the follower, he would lose everything, including the woman he loved, so everything was too late. Moreover, you shouldn't tell me those things. Instead of me, you should ask the others as it isn't me who provokes the others. Leaving those words, Riser transformed into the Phoenix and left the Gregory without looking back. Azazel fell into silence again, realizing how hypocritical he was. He could say all of those things to Riser, yet could he say those words to the others who had provoked him? Yet, he knew, for peace, he had to try since knowing the price of messing up with Riser wasn't something that anyone could pay, but then he realized something. Wait a moment, Riser-sama. Take the curse on my body away. After all, with a grain-like size, what could he do? Peace aside, Azazel wanted his average size to return. At the same time, he ordered all of his subordinates to K*LL all the spies as this news wouldn't be known to anyone. Chapter 163, The Lord of Criminals. Riser was on the rooftop of the best building with a cigarette dangling from his lips as he stared at the Phenex city. Undoubtedly, this day was one of his happiest days as it was when he would be promoted to the ultimate class devil. Usually, this type of event would be held on Lilith, the current capital of the Satan territory ruled by Surzek's Lucifer, but Riser chose the Phenex domain for his promotion. Still, no one said anything, especially when he had the support of Zekrom Baal. This time, his backing wasn't Seraphal Leviathan but Zekrom Baal, the ancestor of the Baal House and the real leader of the Great King faction. Nevertheless, due to this, the Phenex domain was full of a festive mood. There was even a huge festival where everyone was having fun because the children of their lord became the ultimate class devil. Still, due to his decision, Surzek Lucifer and Iryuka Beelzebub didn't come. The only members of the four Maus who had decided to come were Seraphal Leviathan and Falbium Asmodeus. It was also due to his parents being slightly tense, but Riser didn't care and just continued to do what he wished. However, even without Azazel's reminder, Riser also knew how pointless his fight was. In the end, everything started due to that worthless engagement. If he was reincarnated early, then would this problem even exist? Yet, everything had become tangled and impossible to be untied unless the other gave up. Still, it was impossible for him to give up first since he knew by giving up, he would show his weakness. When he showed his weakness, the world wouldn't be so kind to him. It was also due to this that he continued to fight Surzek, and even dared to fight Iryuka. Congratulations, you have received 3 random rewards. Did you forget that you will receive rewards when you mess the Gregory up? Many things happened lately, and the system also didn't bother him, so he forgot about his rewards. Do you need to consult something with me? Riser had to say that the system was kind and gentle, even though it was quite messed up in the beginning. Frankly, he thought of the system as his buddy, but then again, he knew that it was the effect of Stockholm Syndrome, especially when his life was constantly messed up previously. Moreover, he wasn't weak enough to consult his problem with the system. Yet, he had to say, he was quite exhausted. He had been spending most of his time fighting the impossibility. Most of his fight was also brutal, and he knew after this, there would be another fight. Moreover, it was impossible for him to stop. It was also due to this he decided to open his rewards. Congratulations, you have received Craftsmanship Mastery, Perfect Crime, and Pedo no Mi Complete Version. He fell into silence once again and thought that the system was as amazing as ever. His first reward was a Craftsmanship Mastery, giving him a mastery over craft, which made him able to flawlessly craft any item, such as forging the most potent weapons, the toughest armor, the most impressive structures, and the most powerful artifacts to sheer perfection. Frankly, this SK*LL helped him so much, especially when his researcher didn't give him the ability to craft, so he could only start learning from the beginning. Yet, with this ability, if he wished to make the sacred gear, then it was possible. To be honest, he might have made it sound easy, but the truth was it was so hard. Even Azazel, someone with the brightest mind and who lived for so long, could only create a replica of the sacred gear. However, such a difficult thing was easily completed by him, especially the common sacred gear like the twice critical, which he took from Gregory previously. If he wanted to make it, he could make it in a day or even less. Frankly, the sacred gear was just a magic weapon. However, if there was something that made it different from other magic weapons, it was the fact that it had a sentient that resided inside, giving it the ability to grow stronger due to the emotion of the holder. It was quite similar to the ability of the devil fruit to a certain extent. Still, even if sacred gear might seem impressive, it could also cause trouble to the user as it had a sentient inside, so its appearance might appear like a curse instead of a blessing, especially when many sacred gear users were abandoned or even K*led. Nevertheless, those things weren't his problem, and he didn't care about those things since, right now, he could create a weapon comparable to the sacred gear. His first reward was amazing, but what about his second reward? Perfect Crime. It might appear strange for him to show such a reaction, but when he read the description of this ability, many would think his reaction was normal. This ability wouldn't make him stronger, and it also hardly helped him in a fight, yet strangely enough, this ability was useful. If he had to make a comparison, it was like the achieve magic that he got from Ica before. This Perfect Crime was such an ability. Yet, he had to say this ability was rather frightening. The Perfect Crime is a reality-altering ability that allows him to perfectly erase any evidence of a crime. Yes, any crime. With this ability, as long as he committed a crime, all of the evidence that pointed out that he was a criminal would be erased. It might be hard to imagine, but if he made an example, if he stole the wallet of someone in the street, even with many cameras surrounding him, as long as he activated this ability, all of that evidence would disappear strangely. Naturally, there was a weakness in this ability as it couldn't change or affect people's memories at a crime scene. However, as long as there weren't any people, no one would be able to find out that it was he who committed the crime. Moreover, he also had an area of invisibility, and no one knew he had this ability. In other words, he was simply a perfect criminal. But reality alter, huh? When he thought about it, even if this ability was quite small or even weak, it had a frightening effect as it could alter reality. Yet, his timing to get this ability was good as there was something that he wanted to do after this. Nevertheless, while he was satisfied with his second reward, he couldn't help but look at his third reward. Devil fruit again? Huh? If it was just a normal version, he wouldn't dare to eat it unless he did a body modification surgery on his body, but it was different from the version that he got from the system, so even if he ate two, he would be okay. Yet, he had to say, he felt weird when the two devil fruits he got were all non-canon devil fruits, which were eaten by characters in the filler episodes. But since there was no limit to the development of the devil fruit ability, he didn't really mind as those abilities could grow stronger as long as he had an imagination no matter how weird the abilities were. This Pedo no Mi would be his third devil fruit, and he didn't hesitate to eat it. Yet, as he ate the devil fruit, he couldn't help but be amazed as the ability of this devil fruit was rather terrifying. Chapter 164, Just the Two of Us. After he ate this devil fruit, Riser conjured a green, gel-like collar. Pedo no Mi. It was devil fruit that gave him the ability to control any living creature by giving them a green, gel-like collar. When he thought about the ability of this devil fruit, it felt like he had become a slave master somehow. Yet, how could it not be? After all, as long as any living beings were caught in the collar, they would become his pet and would follow every one of his orders. Nevertheless, he had to admit that this ability was scary since if he wished to, he could control any living beings, including those gods, supernatural beings, and the rest. Riser knew that it was even possible for him to control Tannon. Yet, even if this ability was amazing, there was a weakness of this ability. The first weakness was that this ability only worked when one was caught on the collar, so if they weren't caught, he couldn't control them, and with enough speed, it was possible for one to dodge the collar. The second weakness was that Riser could only control his victims' bodies. He couldn't control their consciousness and senses, allowing his victims to come up with plans to escape from his control. The third weakness was that the victim must be able to hear and comprehend the command for it to take effect before it works. The fourth weakness was that as long as the victims exerted enough willpower, they could resist the commands. Yet, those weaknesses were easily solved. The first weakness could be solved by using area of invisibility or changing the collar color, so no one could see when he threw the collar toward them. As for the second weakness, as long as he made an order beforehand, telling them not to escape even if their consciousness tried to think of a countermeasure, it was meaningless. The third weakness was even easier to solve as he could give a command through telepathy magic. By then, he could send his order directly into their brain without even saying anything. As for the last weakness, if they couldn't be controlled, then he would K***LL them. That's it. Everything was easily solved, yet he had to say this ability was scary, and he might as well have kept this ability a secret. Still, suddenly, he thought of an idea. He took twice critical from his dimensional storage, and a black gel-like substance was released from his palm and enveloped around twice critical. Even though he had gotten this sacred gear, it didn't mean that he could use it. Probably, due to the consciousness within the twice critical notice that he hated a dragon, which made him unable to use it. However, it was meaningless, especially when the dragon used to make the sacred gear was just a common dragon, yet he had to say, it was troublesome to use it, and it was unstable, so he didn't use it. However, what if he used the ability of this devil fruit? As expected, everything became smooth, and he could easily control twice critical. Then, as he used the ability of the sacred gear, he could feel his power had doubled. Yes, double. This was the ability of twice critical to double the power of the user. It was a simple ability, but it was perfect for him, especially when his power was monstrous. Riser was different from Issei, whose power was 0. Still, it made him wonder whether he should take the boosted gear from Issei. Yet, he decided not to as it was quite troublesome, especially when there was Surzek, so he thought to target the other Longinus or sacred gears. So, after this ceremony, she went to the human world to search for the most suitable sacred gear for him by using location. Oni-sama, here you are. Everyone is looking for you, you know? Riser didn't need to turn to guess whose voice it was as he was extremely familiar with this voice. Ravel sounded so helpless as she approached Riser, but this was a rare chance for them to be alone, so she didn't forget to close the door beforehand. However, the one who made the first move wasn't her, but him. Riser hugged her in his arms as he gazed at the distant scenery. Still, unlike before, when she was in his arms, it felt so relaxing and at ease. The warmth of her body and her honey-like scent. Everything about her was just perfect. It felt like he didn't need anything as long as he had her. Oh, Issei-sama. Ravel was quite embarrassed when he hugged her suddenly. What's wrong, Ravel? He asked as he buried his face in her soft, blonde hair. Nothing. It's just, how to say, it feels nice. While she lost her calm at first, she also felt happy and felt everything was vibrant with him by her side. It felt like the color of everything had become wonderful. Only the two of them, side by side, without anyone else. The two enjoyed their quiet moment together before Ravel suddenly said, Issei-sama, what if? No, please forget what I am about to say. She felt that she shouldn't say this, yet she just couldn't help it as she couldn't help but imagine such a future. Tell me. Good geez. When her neck was kissed by him, it caused her face to flush red, and she let out AS*XYMO*N. While it felt good, she knew this wasn't the time for them to do this, especially when he was about to have her ceremony to become the ultimate class devil. Suddenly, she realized how bold her action had been previously during his raiding game with Tannon, but he wouldn't stop unless she told him, so she could only give up and tell him what she thought in her mind. What if we just leave everything behind and live with the two of us somewhere in a place where no one knows? Riser fell in silence and laid his chin on her head, hugging her in his arms. I am sorry for saying that. Ravel quickly apologized as she thought she had made him angry. It's okay. I am not angry. However, there is no doubt such a life will be comfortable. Just the two of us, without anyone knowing us. I just can't help but imagine such a peaceful life. But you should know my personality, right? Yes. To live in fear of pursuers, constantly looking over my back without any tranquility or peace, I had rather die while facing my opponents, bringing them with me to the abyss. While men move based on their logic, women move based on their emotions. Facing him, who seemed to be exhausted and in pain every time, Ravel couldn't help but wish to be his help, but she couldn't. So in the end, she suggested for them to leave together, on the place where no one knew, having their peaceful life together. Yet, there was no way for Riser to leave or escape from everything. You're so stubborn, Issei-sama. Ravel sighed helplessly. I am sorry. Don't apologize, Issei-sama. This is also part of you that Ravel loves, so just be bold like before since Ravel will be with you. And Ravel also apologizes for making such a suggestion. Unlike before, when his mind was tense due to his fight, Riser couldn't blame Ravel since he knew he still owed her a lot, especially when he had decided to make her his woman, even though he knew when their relationship was doomed. However, after this, do you want to take a trip? Trip? Yeah, only the two of us, on the place where no one knows. That will be wonderful. Where are we going? Ravel was excited about the idea. Let's go to the human world. There are many things there. Okay. Ravel agreed without hesitation, especially when she knew no one knew about them in the human world. Only as the two talked intimately did the door open suddenly. Ravel, did you find? Ravel and Riser. Chapter 165, New Chapter. Iryuka. Ravel was startled when she saw her childhood friend suddenly appear and saw her and Riser hugging each other intimately. The one who opened the door was Iryuka Glaglais, a childhood friend of Ravel. Like Ravel, she was a beautiful petite girl with silver hair styled in a side-upswept hairstyle. Yet even with that petite frame, she had a splendid pair of breasts. Nevertheless, Iryuka was also stunned as she didn't expect to see this scene. Riser and Ravel were so close to each other, like a pair of lovers. Yet, weren't they siblings? Moreover, wasn't he a married man? Subconsciously, a doubt appeared on her stoic and collected face. What's wrong, Iryuka? Riser asked calmly. Even if they were seen by Ravel's childhood friend, he was still as calm as ever while having Ravel in his arms. Everyone is looking for you. The ceremony is about to start, Riser and I. Thanks for reminding me. Riser nodded, showing his gratitude to Iryuka. So, what are you doing here? Iryuka even became doubtful as she saw Riser was as calm as ever. It's a bit stuffy on the inside, so we went out to take in some fresh air. Riser then let go of Ravel and patted her on the back as he approached Iryuka. Ravel followed her brother and quickly calmed herself, as Iryuka didn't notice anything. There are so many people inside. It's troublesome to talk with all of them. That's true. Iryuka also nodded as she affirmed his words. Even though Iryuka and Surzek weren't present, the number of nobles participating in this ceremony was outrageous. After all, Zekrom Bale was present, and everyone who was involved with the Great King faction also gathered. At that moment, Riser knew that he had joined the Great King faction, even though I have planned to stay away from this faction. Riser remembered at the beginning when he thought that he would stick with the Great Four Satan faction as there was no doubt they would become the victor, but then look where he was. Life is really unpredictable. Still, is your family okay, Iryuka? Riser asked, changing the topic without changing his face. Even though Iryuka still wanted to ask about the relationship between Riser and Ravel, his question also made her sigh. It should be okay, but Zephador will be the heir candidate for my father. The heir of the Glaglais died suddenly, so she could do nothing and accepted Zephador as the new heir. Is that not okay? He is too cocky. Riser only chuckled and patted Iryuka's head. Just bear with it. He is still young, anyway. I am sure that he will learn and become more mature in the future. Well, I hope so. Iryuka closed her eyes, enjoying his head pat. Then, let's go. It won't be good if I am late. Leaving Iryuka and Ravel, Riser went to the place where everyone was waiting. Still, Iryuka couldn't help but stare at Riser's back longingly, causing Ravel to cough. Iryuka, what's wrong with you? It's a shame that your brother is married. If he isn't, then I might become your older sister-in-law. Ravel rolled her eyes. Stop saying something stupid. Come on. Wait. Iryuka quickly chased after Ravel, then asked, by the way, Ravel, your relationship with your older brother is so close? Is such a relationship with a sibling normal? She was a single child, so she wasn't sure whether having such a close relationship with a sibling was normal or not, yet instead of a sibling, how to say, she felt like they were a lover. Frankly, Lord Phenex was amazing as he had 4 children, especially when most nobles had 1 or 2 children in their lives. Moreover, there should be a huge age difference between the 2 children as it was quite hard for the devil to have children. Riser and Ravel aside, the age difference between him and his older brothers was quite huge. Still, this wasn't Ravel's current concern as she said, it's normal. Each sibling is different, after all. Some are fighting, and some are quite close. We happen quite close. Is that so? Iryuka nodded and didn't continue talking about the matter between the 2 siblings, greatly relieving Ravel. By the way, if you have a match on the raiding game, can I join you? Your last match was amazing. Let's talk about that matter later since Oni Isama's ceremony is about to start. With those words, the 2 also went to the hall where everyone gathered for his promotion to the ultimate class devil. In the hall, everyone gathered together. Except for Surzek and Iryuka, all the noble families were present, including the Gremory family. From the Great King and all the 72 pillars that still remained, all of them gathered here to watch the promotion of Riser Phenex to the ultimate class devil. All of the devils that were present knew that this was the beginning of the new chapter. It was like how the Devil Civil War happened half a millennium ago, and also the times when Surzek and Iryuka were born. This time, they were about to meet such a similar existence. Riser might be young, but there was no doubt his existence was the brightest among his generation. Like the brightest star, there was no doubt he became the aim of all the young generation. Yet, for Riser, who had stood among all the older generation in his young age, there was no doubt his aim was much bigger than all of them. Still, among all the people present, the one that had the most complicated thought was, without a doubt, Lord Gremory and Lady Gremory. Before, they set up the engagement between Riser and their daughter, yet now, their relationship had become so much worse, like fire and water. Naturally, they felt regret. But everything was too late. If there was something that they were grateful about, they could see their daughter seemed to have matured. The only problem was their son, who made them sigh helplessly. Still, unlike her parents, Rias couldn't take her eyes away from him, like every fiber of her being was just attracted to his figure, obsessed. Nevertheless, no one paid attention to the Gremory couple, as all of them were respectfully facing the ancestor of the Bale house, Zekrom Bale. There was also Lord Bale, the current patriarch of the Bale house, but in front of his father, he was like a puppy. At that moment, the hall was in a solemn and dignified atmosphere as they waited for the main protagonist. Riser Phenex, please enter. When these words fell, the door of the hall opened. Instantly, all eyes were on him, causing all of them to be in a daze. Whether Surzek or Iryuka had their own unique presence. While Surzek appeared goofy and kind, everyone knew how horrible his existence was. Meanwhile, Iryuka gave off a mysterious charm that made people unable to see what was hidden. Yet, Riser was much different. He was bright and warm, like the sun on the world, illuminating the world from the darkness. This presence was unique, as the devil was known as a race that was associated with darkness, so his presence was just too singular. Probably, even his ancestor's brightness was much worse than his. Nevertheless, even if he was bright, the light that he emitted was gentle yet also unreachable. Even Bediz Abaddon, Roygun Belphegor, and Diauzer Belial, who were present at this ceremony, couldn't have such an aura. Still, there was no doubt that those who were associated with him were proud, especially his wife, Sona, Ravel, his peerage members, parents, family, and many others. Even under many adversities, he was able to get what was supposed to be his. Riser glanced at them and made a nod at them before he walked towards Zekrom Bale, who was waiting at the altar within the hall. Only Seraphal sighed as their relationship had changed, but she didn't say anything since she knew it was the natural course of result, especially with what she had done. Zekrom Bale was on the altar as he looked at Riser with a smile. Then, the MC, who happened to be Lord Bale, announced all the lists of Riser's achievements from his hard work to stop the Great War, the victory against all the high ranking within the Gregory, and his raiding game against Tannon. Even though everyone knew what Riser did, they couldn't help but be amazed when they heard what he had done to become the ultimate class devil. Riser Phenex, from now on, you will be an ultimate class devil. Being informed so by Gremory, Riser replied, I will receive it respectfully. Gremory still maintained his smile and said, as you have become the ultimate class devil, you will receive the rank of prince and also a territory. But before that, there is something that I want to talk about with everyone. This sudden development made everyone confused. As you know, there is a worrisome issue that is spreading in the underworld, especially toward the certain ultimate class reincarnated devil. As Gremory talked, everyone fell into silence as they thought about the news that circulated in the underworld recently, and their expression became so much more complex. Tannon. After his loss to Riser, there was no good news about him, especially when the entire underworld knew how horrible the lives of the devils were on Tannon's territory. While no one could confirm whether this news was fake or real, everyone believed that Tannon treated all the devils on his territory horribly, causing many devils to die, as his only concern was the dragon. There was even talk about the reason why Tannon wished to become the reincarnated devil, which was his ploy to conquer the underworld and K*LL all the devils. By then, Tannon, who was known as the most popular player on the raiding game, became a monster in everyone's eyes. Due to that heartbreaking news, as the ancestor of the great king, I can't help but come out from my seclusion. That's why I have decided to put an observer until all the news is cleared up. Gremory then looked at Riser and asked, Riser Phenex, would you be willing to become the observer of Tannon? Riser put his hand on his chest as he bowed his head. For the future of the underworld, for the future of the devil, I am willing to become the observer for Tannon. As those words fell, they sucked a deep breath and knew the new chapter was about to start soon. Chapter 166, Meaningless Trouble. What a bastard. Didn't he just want to steal our hard work? They are all so deceitful. The dragon might appear like a beast, but not all of them were stupid since many also embarked on a civilization, especially those who were under Tannon's rule. Frankly, many things had happened on Tannon's territory, especially after his loss to Riser. Yet, they couldn't stop such horrible news as some of them were true. Nevertheless, no one expected that everything would be this serious. After all, Tannon wasn't the most horrible lord, as there were many horrible lords in the underworld. It was also due to this that the Great Four Satan's faction was popular as it gave hope to those who were oppressed. However, unlike those horrible lords, who were pure-blooded devils, even if they were horrible, their lineage was noble, and their lands had been ruled from their ancestors' time. So all of those low-class devils had gotten used to being treated horribly. Instead, being treated horribly was something normal for them, and it was their fate, especially when those devils were born weak. If they wanted to live, then they needed to serve their lords well. It might seem like a nihilistic place without a dream or hope, but when they weren't the only ones who lived miserably, they huddled together, and the world became warm. Nevertheless, Tannon was different. He wasn't a devil, and he was a dragon, so his focus had always been on the dragon, and he didn't care much about the devils, causing this problem. Still, the announcement on television during Riser's promotion caused unrest in Tannon's territory. The devils, who lived on the Tannon's territory aside, the dragons were in terrible news as their king was viewed as a tyrant and horrible lord in the media. However, what made them even more dissatisfied was the fact that their king didn't say anything and just kept silent without even refuting the malicious news. What's the king is doing? If he doesn't do anything, then this bird bastard might do something horrible to us. Even worse, he might take the dragon apples. When someone mentioned the dragon apples, everyone fell into silence. After all, this was the real reason why the dragons decided to follow Tannon to the underworld. Without dragon apples, some of their races were unable to live and might die. It was also due to this that even though they were known as a prideful race that wouldn't bow to anyone, they decided to bow down to the devil and became a reincarnated devil. Nevertheless, it didn't mean they were stupid. They knew how powerful the devils were. After all, if the devils were weak, Tannon might just lead his followers to conquer the underworld for themselves. Still, their observer was Riser Phenex. If it was someone else, they might be able to do one or two, stopping this conspiracy by themselves. But Riser was different. Everyone was clear about how strong Riser was, especially when he could defeat their king. So, at this moment, they waited anxiously for their king's response. Nevertheless, Tannon was also anxious and contacted his master directly. Similar to others, as a reincarnated devil, he had his own master, someone who turned him into a reincarnated devil. Still, the relationship between them wasn't like a master and a servant. Instead, their relationship was like a business partner. Mefisto, can you help me? Mefisto Felix, the legendary devil who formed a pact with Johann George Faust. This was Tannon's master. After forming a pact with Faust, he remained in the human world even after Faust died and quickly rose to the top of the magician organization, Grauzauberer, becoming the director of the Magician Council. At some point in time afterward, he reincarnated Tannon as a member of his peerage as well. This time, you have caused me trouble, Tannon. I am sorry. I thought I didn't think about how much trouble that it had led. Tannon knew how arrogant he was previously, and it might also be the reason why Riser was angry at him. Moreover, even though his peerage members weren't K*led, he roared that he would K*ll Riser. With all of those things linked together, Tannon was already pictured as the bad guy. Frankly, Tannon thought that it was just a small conflict, but suddenly it had become so huge that he was helpless. As a master, Mefisto had never forbidden Tannon to do anything, and he let him do whatever he wanted to do. I will try, but I didn't expect that Zekrom-sama would be involved in this matter. If it was only Riser, Mefisto, who was an old devil, didn't think too much, but Zekrom was a devil. While he had heard the rumor about Riser, the time Riser became famous was short, so he didn't pay much attention to Riser. Yet, this young man whom he ignored suddenly became a thorn in his powerful queen. Still, instead of rage, Mefisto suddenly became curious. After all, unlike the Gremory clan, who felt affectionate toward their servants, his feelings toward the others were like business. Everything was an equivalent exchange. The reason why Mefisto let Tannon become his servant was due to the power of Tannon. It was also why Tannon chose Mefisto, as he knew Mefisto wasn't someone who would treat him like a follower, subordinate, or, even worse, a slave. Thank you. Tannon sighed in relief as he shuddered as he recalled Riser's abyss-like eyes. Riser's eyes were so dark and sticky that they would pull him into eternal darkness. Yet, as a dragon, courage was the last thing that he lacked. Next time, don't get involved in this kind of problem. I know. Tannon also started to regret when he thought that he should help Surzek, thinking that he might be able to gain the favor of Surzek. Yet, what did he get? It was nothing but trouble. Moreover, even though Surzek had promised nothing would happen even after his match with Riser, it was nothing but an empty promise. While Tannon sighed, rubbing his horns, which had recovered after they were pulled by Riser, he could still feel the pain of Riser's ruthless method, but then he walked out from his house, trying to pacify his followers that everything would be okay. Especially when he had talked with his master, Mephistopheles, and gained the friendship of Surzek. Hearing those words, all the dragons that were anxious also felt relief. That guy mustn't dare to do anything when Surzek-sama is involved. Yes, there is also a Mefisto. Humph. He is going to say sorry for causing so much trouble for us. The trouble caused by Riser was many, and naturally, they didn't have a good feeling toward him, but as expected in front of overwhelming power, even a dragon was in awe of his might. However, more importantly, they were afraid. After all, not every dragon could be so brave. Many were quite lazy and cowardly, so if a conflict could be avoided, then they would be happy. However, when everyone thought they had moved in a good direction, bad news suddenly fell before them when Riser came to Tannon's territory. Question. If Tannon becomes a sacred gear, what kind of shape and ability do you think it will have? Could you give me a surprise? Chapter 167. Rise of the Curtain. When Riser came to Tannon's territory, he directly stopped the research of the Dragon Apple and forbade access to the Dragon Apple for the dragon due to suspicion held by Tannon and the dragons. It was said that the devils were working tirelessly, forced to work without being paid in this territory, and there was also a rumor that the dragon planned to take over the underworld. There were many horrible rumors that circulated, so to clear up those doubts, Riser decided to take over everything and monitor everything, which might endanger the safety of the underworld. Naturally, Riser didn't hide anything, telling his works to the media, and showed how diligent he was in his work. With him becoming the observer of Tannon's territory, everyone felt relief, especially those commoners who knew nothing, thinking that they were saved due to Riser, yet many also felt nervous, especially those upper echelons, as they knew his move had angered the dragons. However, no one said anything, as it was a conflict between Riser and Tannon. Nevertheless, they had to say Riser was quite vicious, as they knew he tried to make Tannon move on him. As long as Tannon dared to move, there was no doubt that he would be pictured as a criminal, and Riser would have a reason to slay Tannon. Yet, could Tannon be able to hold his temper and be patient, especially when Riser forbade access to the Dragon Apple and stopped all the research for the cultivation of this fruit? Frankly, at this moment, everyone was excited, waiting for what Tannon was planning to do. If Tannon and Riser were really having a fight at this moment, all of them would watch it with relish as they knew something interesting would happen. The devil had a long age after all, and many of them spent their time in the boar as they lacked a novelty. Due to their long age, they had done many things, so everything they saw was boring for them. However, the conflict between Riser and Tannon made them excited. Frankly, it was hard to imagine how Riser was going to lose, especially when he had defeated Tannon, and everyone still remembered his visage on the day of his promotion. However, when a dragon was desperate, it would do anything. Nevertheless, no one planned to join, and they were staring into the distance as an audience, watching the new drama in the theater that was about to start. Still, their opinion had nothing to do with Riser. Frankly, after he made his house in the area where there were most devils in the area, naturally, Due to this, many wanted to talk with him. However, as he had inserted his rats into the people beforehand, all the public opinion was on him, and they all supported him to sanction Tannon, who had done a bad thing to all of them. Yet, was that the truth? To be honest, Riser didn't care about all of those things. Even if they were oppressed by Tannon, he would just ignore it as if they were a mere stranger to him. He knew that he was being cold, but life in the supernatural world was like this. If they were weak, they could only rely on the strong, even if the price was just horrible. There was no fairness. Everything was solved with power. Wasn't that also the reason why the dragon had always been seen as the pinnacle of power? However, Riser had to say that this conflict was meaningless. If Tannon didn't provoke him and just lay low without being involved in his trouble with Surzek, would he do something so troublesome as this and even join the Great King faction? Probably not. Riser felt that he might as well spend his time in his villa with his harem. Still, as he decided to stay on Tannon's territory and became the monitor of this territory, was he interested in Tannon's territory? No. Riser didn't have much of an interest in this territory. Instead, his territory was in a different place as he chose a snowy land as his territory. It might be strange, as tropical territory should be more comfortable, but he knew the people on the tropical territory were lazy as they could get many things easily, and even if he could get the territory in that area. The trouble from governing was probably so troublesome. However, the cold climate was different. They were working hard, and because of that, their physical strength was stronger than the majority. What was the name again? Bergman's Rule? That should be the name. Still, the cold climate was nothing due to his fire manipulation, and his peerage members should be the same. Moreover, the people in the snowy area were living in dire, so when he brought them prosperity, they would be glad toward him, making him truly the lord on the territory. Yet, he had to say everyone's expression when he said he wanted to have a snowy land as his territory was amazing. However, he could go to his territory later as his territory wouldn't go anywhere. He could even go to his territory a year later, but he had set up many projects for his territory, such as factories for several businesses owned by him and Phenex House, and also tourism. Still, while everything was good, Riser wondered what Tannon was planning to do. Use your Pedo no Mi's power, control Tannon and dragons to destroy the city and massacre many devils before defeating them, K*ling them, and becoming a hero. Riser was unable to say a single word and felt a little cold when he read the advice given by the system. Usually, all the advice given by the system was abominable, but it was still within his limit as everything had always related to his actions toward his women, but this time, it was different as it told him an outrageous plan. Frankly, it wasn't that he hadn't thought of such an idea, but he felt that it was too evil. When he thought about it, he hadn't K*led anyone, whether it was his enemies or innocent people. However, if he really did what the system told him that meant, he would K*ll those innocent people in this territory. With the power of Pedo no Mi, it was possible to control Tannon and the other dragons to cause mass destruction in the underworld, but then again, K*ling his enemies aside. Was his first K*ll would be the innocent people who knew nothing and just got involved due of his evil plan? Could he do such a thing? Frankly, even though he planned to do an evil thing and became a villain, he didn't do much of an evil thing except fight his enemies and trample their dignity. Moreover, he didn't K*ll them. Instead, he made them his followers. It was also the reason why they could trust him, and no one gave a dramatic answer, such as a suicide attack, exchanging their lives for his life, so pretty much his life was peaceful. As he had an afternoon coffee in his yard, he observed the distant scenery. The dust swept upward from the barren land due to the wind, which could be seen from his position. Except for the dragon apple, the special fruit that was eaten for the special species of dragons to stay alive, there was nothing here as it was located at the edge. If there was something that was noteworthy about this territory, it was the fact that it was located next to Gremory territory. It was also due to the fact that the majority could agree to give territory to Tannon, as in the worst case, Surzek could do something about Tannon. Yet, naturally, while there were some who agreed, there were also many who rejected it since the existence of a dragon was like a double-sided sword. While Tannon and the others could strengthen the overall ability of the devils, in the end, they were dragons. They were beings who just moved based on his whims and feelings without much thought, as they had the power to back up their selfishness. In this case, they betrayed the devils. What should they do? It was also the reason why everyone positively agreed to let him become the monitor of Tannon's territory, and while they didn't say it directly, they wished for him to K*ll Tannon. After all, instead of a dragon and a reincarnated devil, they trusted Riser more, as pure blood from the Phenex house. His pedigree was the one that gave everyone unconditional trust. Yet, there was one big problem. Oni-sama. Ravel suddenly interrupted his thought when she suddenly came, but her words were cut by a certain figure who came without permission into his yard. Are you Riser Phenex? Sorry for coming so suddenly without any prior notice. My name is Mefisto. Nice to meet you. A middle-aged man with gelled hair, which is a mixture of red and blue, and heterochromia eyes with his left eye blue and the right eye red appeared before him. Mephistopheles, Tannon's master, came directly to visit him. Chapter 168, Soft-Hearted. It might have been his first time seeing Mefisto, but Riser knew Mefisto as he had investigated everything about Tannon. He might seem like a reckless type who would charge to every one of his problems, solving them with power, but if a problem could be solved by talk, why should he fight? However, ironically, most of the problems in the supernatural world could only be solved by power. Without power, everything was meaningless. So, even if Mefisto was in the same generation as his ancestor, Riser didn't show much respect since their position made them hostile to each other. Still, the most important point was that he didn't think he would lose to Mefisto. Yet, even with a lack of respect, Mefisto still smiled as if he wasn't troubled by Riser's attitude. "You don't seem that surprised when you see me," Mefisto said after sitting on Riser's opposite side with a kind smile. "Because if we fight, I don't think I will lose." "Fu-fu-fu." Mefisto laughed. "You are right. If we fight, I will lose. I don't think that I can win against you." He was frank and didn't hide the fact that he was weaker than the younger one in front of him. "Still, your relationship is so close." He couldn't have but said those words when he saw Riser and Ravel. "What do you want to say?" Riser narrowed his eyes. Ravel, who was standing behind Riser's, was also startled, but when he held her hand, she felt relief. "I am sorry. I don't have a bad intention to mention that." Mefisto quickly apologized as he knew he had touched Riser's nerve, and he could tell that there was no doubt that more rude remarks would give him a painful death. Yes, death. Mefisto could see that Riser would really K*LL him as long as he dared to say the next words that he was supposed to say. Even now, he could feel something sharp that was about to slice apart his body. This sharpness was something that he had never felt before, as he felt not only his body, but even his soul could be cut, which was outrageous. Still, due to this, in front of Mefisto, there was no need to hide anything. However, in case their news were known, there was no doubt Mefisto would be Riser's target. Nevertheless, Mefisto felt helpless and wanted to curse his mouth for some reason, as he hated trouble. However, he really didn't intend to say anything, as what Riser and Ravel did was something cute compared to what the old Satan did in the past. Moreover, he could see they were sincere with each other, and this was also what made him feel Riser wasn't a bad individual. "Are you not here to ask us to stop bothering your peerage members?" Riser asked. "Well, partly I come for that. But I realize that I have messed up, so I think that's not possible, right?" "You are right. Moreover, to be honest, even if Tannon died, I don't really care, so you don't need to worry since no enmity will be born among us." Riser frowned. "You are so cold." "Really? I think it is you who is weird for thinking of your peerage members as your family." Mefisto chuckled and felt that this young man was kind, but the world was just unkind toward him. It was as if fate wanted this young man to bow down and just follow a certain force obediently like others, which forced him to become evil. While Mefisto wasn't sure where this source originated from, he made his decision to stay away from the storm so as not to get involved. It was the same case as the Devil Civil War that happened previously, as he stayed away and didn't join either side. As for Tannon, as Mefisto had said before, he didn't care. He had let Tannon do whatever he wanted without giving him instructions or anything. In other words, all of these problems were due to Tannon's carelessness in joining this whirlpool. Still, Mefisto smiled and said, "Still, you're kind." "I am kind." Riser felt weirded out. "You know, if you wish, you should be able to K*LL Tannon directly, yet you still do this troublesome method, harassing him. To be honest, with your power, even if you K*LL Tannon directly, no one will say anything. So why do you do all of this? Moreover, you should have realized that Tannon has been abandoned by the Great Four Satans." "No, it should be Syrzek who had abandoned Tannon, as the other Great Four Satans didn't get involved in this matter. Yet, even if you know all of those facts, you didn't do it. You didn't massacre Tannon and his people and give them a chance to stay alive, right?" Riser didn't say anything since what Mefisto said was correct. Frankly, Riser tried to give Tannon a chance. He didn't doubt Tannon's power, and like what he did with the East Yukai faction and the Gregory, he thought to dominate Tannon and his races. However, in the eyes of Mefisto, Riser's method was gentle. As Mefisto had said before, Tannon was already at his disposal. Syrzek had abandoned Tannon and let Riser do whatever he wanted with Tannon. Why? If there was an answer, it was all due to peace. Yes, peace. As Azazel had said before, the three factions meeting would be held soon in Kuo Town. Everyone had anticipated this peace and wished for it to happen, especially Syrzek, Azazel, and others. In order to make this meeting smooth without any problems, they decided to give Tannon to Riser, hoping that it would appease his anger so as not to cause trouble, giving everyone the peace that everyone had sought. After all, if Riser really wanted to make trouble, they couldn't stop him since his methods had always been out of the box. No one could predict what he would do, and everything was based on his whim. Moreover, he had the power to back up action. His action might be like a dragon, but Riser was different from a dragon as he never made the first move. In the eyes of others, he had always been on the side of justice and righteousness. No matter how cruel his action was, he had never been pictured as a villain by others. So they were afraid if they really made peace, then they would be pictured as villains. This was why they let Riser do whatever he wanted with Tannon. You are young, so you don't know how we, devil, are originally born. In the eyes of Lucifer, we're nothing but tools used to wage war against God and heaven. As we're tools, you should know how Lucifer treats us, right? How did the devil treat a tool? Was there even a need to answer? Riser fell in silence for a moment as he thought that everything was meaningless. He wondered why he did all of this, even though he didn't hate Tannon that much. Frankly, sometimes, he also wondered why he wanted to fight Syrzek, as it was better to hug this fat thigh, having him to protect him from anything. Yet, the world was like this. Even if Riser didn't do anything, it would mess with his life, and everything was too late. Nevertheless, Mefisto misunderstood him as Riser had never intended to give Tannon a chance. Tannon was different from Nurari Hyon. The dragon was much stupider than the other races, so Riser didn't have any hope for Tannon to beg him, apologizing like a beggar, bowing his head so low until he kissed the ground. Especially when Tannon sent Mefisto to mediate everything, trying to scare Riser to leave this territory. Facing such a stupid lizard, Riser didn't have mercy, but this isn't the time. If Riser K** led Tannon, he would give an opening to Syrzek, so he needed to wait for a while. 1 year. What? Mefisto was confused. If Tannon and the others can hold on until 1 year, I will leave and forgive him. While I still forbid their access to the dragon apple and stop the cultivation research of this fruit, I will still give them a minimal amount of dragon apple for them to stay alive, but they have to pay, so in this 1 year. Tell him to do his best not to cause trouble and anger me. Riser said those words magnanimously, but what was he thinking inside? No one really knew, but then again, he felt it was too early to erase Tannon. At least, he wanted to maximize Tannon's value before he erased him. Mefisto blinked his eyes and wanted to say that Riser was quite naive as it was better to erase all the enemies clean without leaving them behind. Yet since Riser had said so, and it was good for Tannon and the others, then why should he reject? Then, I will tell him that. Still, hearing Riser ask Tannon to pay. Was Riser interested in money and wealth? Mefisto learned something good, but he knew that it was his time to leave, even if Riser didn't say anything. However, before he left, he said, by the way, do you want to make a contract with a magician? What? Chapter 169, Suspicious Magician. Despite being a devil, Mefisto was also the chairman of the magician organization, Grauzauber. Grauzauber, also known as the Grey Wizards, is one of the leading magician organizations in the supernatural world. It was created by the magician Johann George Faust. After his death, his contracted devil, Mephistopheles, took over as acting chairman of the organization. With all of this identity, Riser wasn't surprised why Mefisto offered him such an offer. Yet, what was the point of making a contract with the magician? Frankly, since ancient times, magicians and devils have been strongly connected due to magic originating from magicians' research of devils' demonic power. Devils offered to make pacts for a specific period of time with a magician of their choosing in exchange for getting access to the unique magical research and unique formulas that their contracted magician creates. Now, why did the magician make a pact with the devil that was even to the point where they gave their lives to the devil, like how Faust did to Mefisto? The first is to use them as bodyguards. When the time comes, having a powerful devil behind their back will allow a magician to talk with their opponents if they are caught up in a quarrel. Secondly, magicians make pacts because they want to attain the techniques and knowledge of devils. To make it clearer, the technical standards of the underworld. These things will play a large role when magicians do their research. Also, by making a pact with the devil, they will be allowed to get items or resources cheaper by having an equal exchange. Lastly, they make a pact with the devil for their own status. Making a pact with a powerful devil will bring great fortune and success to them. Riser didn't deny that there was a benefit to making contact with the magician, but then again, he felt that he was at the losing end as he didn't think that the magician's worth was hardly that important to him. Due to your fights with various famous figures from Kokobel, White Dragon Emperor, Azazel, and even Tannon, you have become famous in the world of magicians, and many of them wish to make a contract with you. Moreover, Riser was a descendant of the famous Phenex house. Having access to Phenex tears was definitely a plus point for every magician. There was no doubt Riser was like a sugar in the eyes of those magicians. Nevertheless, why did he feel like he was facing a group of parasites? You can look at those lists of magicians and see whether there is someone that makes you interested. Even before Riser said anything, Mefisto suddenly took out a stack of paper filled with all the information of various magicians. Riser and Ravel. It might be strange to say this, but it felt like he was facing an aggressive salesman for some reason. Riser looked at Mefisto, who still maintained his smile, then took the paper randomly. Lavinia Rennie? Riser looked at the picture of a beautiful, buxom young woman with long, flowing blonde hair and sapphire blue eyes. She appeared to be wearing standard magician robes with a hood. While Riser hadn't seen her, he could tell that her 3 sizes were B100, W59, H88 cm, which was just slightly below a kino, which shocked him. That's the ace of our organization. It was impossible to hide the pride in Mefisto's tone. If you read further, you will be surprised by her ability. This made Riser and Ravel curious as they continued reading Rennie's information. The most SK*-led magicians, a space magic, stealth expect, and Longinus user? Ravel was dumbfounded. Longinus. This word alone caused Ravel to open her eyes wide. There was no doubt Longinus was the pinnacle of the sacred gear and the strongest among all the sacred gears. Even Issei, who was just a perverted boy and spent his time with his hand every single day, became so powerful due to the fact he was the holder of boosted gear. However, a Longinus wasn't something that could be found easily as there were only 13 of them in this world. Moreover, unlike the other sacred gears, which could be found among a few people at the same time, each Longinus was precious and strong, and there was only one of them. So, as long as the user was alive, there was no possibility for the second to appear. Yet, this Rennie was also a Longinus user? Absolute demise. Riser raised his brow at the name of the Longinus owned by Rennie. He had read from the book that was collected by his family and Citri's family and knew that the ability of absolute demise was an ice manipulation, which was similar to the ability of his sister-in-law. Frankly, it surprised me when she told me that she wanted to form a contract with you. Is it strange? Of course. Mefisto nodded. You might not know, but she is famous, and many devils wish to form a contract or make her into their peerage members. Unfortunately, she doesn't have much of an interest, but strangely enough. His eyes narrowed with a happy smile. She seems to have an interest in you. Why? Riser frowned as he had never met Rennie, but then again, the information about Rennie on the paper was quite limited, so he just put down the paper on the table and glanced from the stack of information of the magicians. Feeling quite helpless as the majority of them were female, Riser looked up at Mefisto once again with a doubt. Was this guy planning to send a honey trap? His reputation as a playboy wasn't for nothing, after all. Moreover, he even dared to touch his little sister, so there was no doubt everyone would think that he was a playboy. Yet, was that the truth? No. It was they who threw themselves at him. He was innocent, okay? However, he felt that it was too hasty to make the decision to form with a magician so early. If I have such an interest, I will contact you. Is that so? Then, I will wait for the good news. Mefisto then stood up from his seat. Then, I won't bother you. I will talk to Tannon to report our talk. Riser didn't stop Mefisto and watched him leave without much of a change in his emotions. However, he suddenly wondered whether it was possible to use location, searching for his fateful magician, but suddenly he felt a warm and soft sensation on the back of his head. Ravel? He was startled by her actions, especially when he saw her smiling happily. What's wrong? Was there something happy that I missed? Well, it's because Oni-sama has announced our relationship. Ravel was happy that Riser dared to say that she was his woman in front of others, but at the same time, she was worried. But, is this okay? What if he talks about us to the others? Riser, who had pulled Ravel into his embrace, reassured her. You don't need to worry. He won't be able to talk. Did Mefisto think that he could walk away safely after knowing his secret? No way. Watching the invisible collar on Mefisto's neck, Riser was at ease. But then, Oni-sama, are you sure that you don't want to form a contract with Lavinia Rennie? She seems like a talented magician, you know? Ravel felt that they needed to be aggressive, as it was rare to see such a strong magician. I am not in a hurry, and I feel she is quite suspicious. Suspicious? Frankly, Riser felt Rennie was quite suspicious for some reason. But what a beautiful magician. Let's conquer her. Well, let's talk about this matter later. After all, he was ready to go to the human world soon. Chapter 170, Initiative. When the meeting with Riser was over, Mefisto met Tannon to tell him what was happening. Hearing that news, while Tannon felt unacceptable, he accepted it since a full-blown war was definitely not something he wished to see. 1 year. 1 year. If you can bear it, then he is going to forgive you. So do your best. Leaving those words, Mefisto no longer talked with Tannon. Nevertheless, Tannon knew that there was nothing he could do. Everything started due to the fact that he decided to join this trouble. If he just did nothing and watched on the side, would he be troubled? As for whether Riser was lying or not, Tannon knew that even a devil was an evil being. They upheld a promise, contract, and reputation the most. It might have been verbal, and no one else knew, but as long as they held on for a year, Riser would leave. So that was what he was going to do, especially when it didn't mean they were going to lose their access to dragon apples. With that said, he quickly told his followers what had happened and told them to wait for a year. His followers didn't say anything, and all of them just stayed in silence, but as they lowered their heads, many had confusion, doubt, and rage in their eyes, feeling that their king had fallen. Nevertheless, those things didn't have anything to do with Riser. Even though he was in charge of monitoring Tannon's territory, was there even a need for him to stay on Tannon's territory all the time? No way. He just left the subordinates he picked from Phenex House, Citri House, and other houses, telling them what to do before leaving with his peerage members. Frankly, was it okay? After all, Tannon and the others weren't weak opponents. If he had just left a few people, wouldn't the dragons think of him as weak, thinking that they had a chance to defeat him? Yet, this was what he wished for. He wished they would attack him. If they really attacked him, then it would give him a reason to attack them. Moreover, those people he had left weren't important to him, and even if they died or were wounded, he wouldn't feel lost. Lastly, if there was really a fight, it wouldn't give him a loss, as the one that was destroyed was Tannon's territory. Even if there was a huge fight and massive destruction, it would do nothing to him. Nevertheless, he hoped that Tannon could hold himself. Be patient so everything can end without bloodshed. You were too gentle. Was he? He had taken over Tannon's territory, making the dragon unable to access the dragon apple freely, and stopped the cultivation of the dragon apple forcefully. Moreover, he also tarnished Tannon's name along with the other dragons. Lastly, it didn't mean he let them go as he took his time, waiting for the time to ripen before he slaughtered all of them. With all of those deeds piled up, the system told him that he was gentle. Riser wondered whether there was something wrong with the system. Still, as he returned to his villa in his resort city, and when his peerage members prepared for his trip to the human world, he went to visit Misla. He knew that it might be weird for him to say this, especially when he felt Ravel was the most special woman for him, but it felt so calming when he was with Misla. It was said that the Vapula clan, the clan that Misla came from, had the ability to tame a lion. Still, Riser wasn't knowledgeable about this ability as he had never seen Misla or Sarorg use this ability, but he was sure that Misla had a unique power that could calm him down. Whenever he was with her, no matter how rough he was with her, she could accept everything, and she also seemed to enjoy their time together, letting him do whatever he wanted with her. It reminded him of a strength from the tarot card. The strength card was pictured of a woman who tamed a fierce lion. Riser might not be a fierce lion, but he was still a fierce beast. As Misla let out a lewd scream, her ** be accepted as everything before she fell in a daze, resting before they lay on the bed together, staring at each other, kissing as if they sought each other's existence. Due to her sleeping disease, she hardly moved anywhere and stayed at his resort city. Still, he wondered whether she wanted to leave. You want to cure my sleeping disease? Misla asked curiously as she lay on his chest. You don't want to? After he had eaten the Tori Tori no Mi model, Phenex, he felt a massive improvement in his Phenex tears. He felt that it should be possible for him to create a special Phenex tears that could be used to heal everything, whether it was chronic diseases or disability. However, this Phenex tears would be different from the one he usually made as he could only produce it once daily. Misla smiled gently and said softly, I don't think that this life is bad, especially when I have you. She didn't ask much as she felt comfortable as long as he remembered her and came to visit her occasionally. As for sleeping disease, she didn't care much since she felt that it was better to let her illness stay within her body since she didn't want to return to her husband. If she had her sleeping disease, it gave her an excuse to stay with Riser after all, but if she didn't, she wouldn't have that excuse. While Riser was speechless, he knew that Misla was correct. As long as she had her illness, it gave her a reason to be together, yet he felt like he trapped her like a bird in a cage. Fu. Misla giggled and kissed his cheek. You don't need to feel guilty. The reason why I can wake up is because of you. The reason why I am happy now is also because of you. You are my reason, and this is enough for me. Yes, this was enough for her. She didn't ask much from him, especially when she knew about her status as the wife of others. Moreover, if their relationship was known, it would be terrible. After all, even if she was abandoned by her husband, she was still the wife of the leader of the Great King faction, Lord Bale. Even though Lord Bale was just a puppet to his father, how could his reputation be tarnished? Suddenly, Riser felt like he was a Lancelot in King Arthur's lore. Still, in his case, he would be like Diarmuid since he had a feeling that as long as he wished to be with Misla, Lord Bale would give her to him as he had abandoned her. While he felt quite angry, he also knew that this was the reality, especially when the high-class Devil Society was a place where blood purity was everything. However, his plan to cure her sleeping disease didn't change, and he thought that he should create the special Phenex tears after he returned from the human world as it wasn't perfect yet. By the way, are you going to the human world after this? Yes. Won't you face something dangerous again? Misla asked in concern. The last time he went to the human world, he knew how horrible his state was, so she was worried. After this, what would he meet or fight? Was he going to fight pagan gods? It's okay. Moreover, I am just going to visit Sona's school since her school has a class visit event. Yes, he came to the human world to participate in Sona's class visit to the Kuo Academy. However, naturally, this wasn't all of his purpose since there was something that he needed to do. While he was lazy and good for nothing, he wasn't the type that liked to procrastinate, especially when his trouble was going to come sooner or later. Moreover, he didn't want to be passive and loved to be active. After all, he didn't want his enemy to have an advantage over him, and because of that, he was going to take the initiative to take down his opponent and complete his quest. Because of that, he needed to go to the human world, but on this trip, he wasn't alone as he was accompanied by his sister-in-law. Yet, unlike before, their relationship was quite stiff, especially when Seraphal kept glancing at him while fidgeting like a girl who was nervous when she met her crush, who had just rejected her confession yesterday.